2 weeks ago, we followed the Abuelas Responden, Grannies Respond, as they traveled to McAllen Texas, the immigrant detention center, also known as Ursula, the largest in the country, to demand an end to the separation of children from their parents who are just trying to come to the border to apply for asylum. Our incredible Bradshaw Granny correspondents, Granny Sharon, Granny Rafiah, Fatima, Claire, Lynn, they were all embedded in the Abuelas Responden, Grannies Respond caravans, and they documented their journeys for all of us. They have returned home. They are busier than ever now, here to discuss their experiences in the caravan and what they've been up to since their return. We have with us Granny Sharon Kutz-Mellem and Grannies Rafiah Jones. Welcome, Sharon and Rafiah. Thanks for coming on our show.
Thanks for having us, Brad.
Let me ask both of you. I'll start with Sharon. Was this the first time you were ever a correspondent on a show?
Yeah.
Yes? You never did that? What about you, Rafiah? You have any experience doing any of this before?
Not this. Not like this.
So why don't you each tell us a little bit about yourselves?
I'm a retired Presbyterian pastor and grandmother, and I've been involved in social justice issues since the 70s.
So you were a pastor in a church?
Two.
In two churches. When did you retire from being a pastor?
A year ago.
A year ago. So what have you been doing other than joining a caravan and demanding political justice? What have you been doing up in this past year? Any hobbies?
Well, I protest. I'm a professional resistor.
Okay.
I've been to the Women's March.
Nothing wrong with that.
March for Your Lives. And I've been hanging out at the ICE headquarters here in Louisville.
And Granny Rafiah, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're an educator, and I believe you're still in a classroom.
I'm a grandmother of 11, so they keep me busy. I have grandchildren in D.C. and in Atlanta, Georgia. Other than working with children, I work with children, and then sometimes I work with children.
So children are obviously really important to you. You have 11 grandchildren.
Yeah.
How many children do you have yourself?
5.
Five children, 11 grandchildren. You work with children in the classroom every day, so obviously this issue of separating parents from their children is very close to your heart.
Very close to my heart, Brett.
Sharon, you said that you have been working with refugees before, since the 1970s, before you joined the caravan. Tell us about your history of working with refugees.
I've been working with refugees since 1994. Not as a pastor, but as a volunteer. And I've helped resettle families. I worked with their elder program at Kentucky Refugee Ministries. I did tutoring when the refugee flow slowed down after Trump did his thing. Then I went to the Stitch program, which helped women learn sewing skills. Right now, I'm getting ready to resettle a Honduran family that is seeking asylum with my church where I worship.
What happened in your life that you said, because you got to really want to help people, obviously, and there's all sorts of different people to help in this world. There's people who are sick. There are people who are down out on their luck. There's refugees. There's a whole host of people in this world to help, and obviously you can't help everybody as much as you want to. How did you decide on, in 1994, I really want to concentrate on refugees. I really want to help them. They really need my help?
It's more of a religious response for me, a spiritual response of doing what I understand my God tells me to do, which is to offer hospitality to the stranger. And although I'm a Christian, we kind of share the Judaic pieces where we offer hesed. We care for those who need help, particularly the foreigner. And it's really filled my heart beyond anything else I've ever done.
Yeah. Coming from the Judeo-Christian, background, it's, you want to leave this world a better place than when you started. Grandma Rafiah. Can I call you Grandma Rafiah? Or should I just call you Rafiah? You're not my grandmother. Rafiah, we've been calling you Granny for the whole, because of the Granny Caravan, Rafiah, children have been your issue, obviously, your entire life. What type of children are you dealing with in the classroom to begin with, and what type of teaching do you do?
Well, I started off in a regular classroom, in the kindergarten classroom, and most of my experience has been with the multi-ethnic group children. I've worked a lot in the Islamic schools in Seattle, Washington, and then when I came back to DC, I was working in DC Clara Muhammad School. And so interestingly enough, we have always had immigrant children. We've had refugee children, so to speak. I've changed that word. But children who have come here with their families from other places. So it's always been part of my experience is to welcome those children and to give them just a solid foundation in English and just the American experience. Now, mostly what I do in the classroom is to observe and do assessment. And then I have a drama class that I teach, and it gives the children an opportunity to just express themselves with them.
Now you said in your answer that I picked up on something. You said, I hate the word refugee. Why do you hate the word refugee? What is a better word to describe people who are escaping injustice or basically escaping for their lives?
Better word to me would be the soldiers, the fighters, the survivors, the newcomers. Why can't they just be called the newcomers to America? Because any word that we use should be inclusive. It should make them feel and make us feel that they're part of us.
Right, and I guess refugee makes you feel like they're an outsider. Is that why you don't like it?
Yeah, it just sounds other than, you know, unless we're all refugees, unless we can use that term for more of us. And I don't mean to disrespect or disregard the struggle that people have gone through to get here. I don't mean I want to just forget that. But
you want it to be more positive.
Yeah, maybe that's a better word.
Right.
Just more self-asserting, more affirming.
The reason I say that is because I always say on my show that words matter. And the words that you use matter, and it changes the political discourse and how people think. And words more than anything else, of course, world wars. For example, a refugee could be somebody who is fleeing persecution, fleeing for their life. They come here and they don't have a status, a legal status, whether a green card or citizen. They're called illegal. And that illegal connotation makes people say, these people, when you hear the word illegal, you feel like they're criminal. And that's what people start thinking. You know, they're just as bad as someone who robs a bank or who sells drugs or who's a mass murderer or a rapist. And they're wrong. And it's just really, this is somebody who's fleeing from maybe those type of people themselves. Right. Sharon, let's get back to Sharon a second. How did you hear about the Caravan?
I grieved deeply when the first zero tolerance photos came out. I had nightmares. I had sleepless nights. And a friend, local, another granny who went on the trip, we would call each other and say, we got to get in a car and go down there. And about that time, I was on Twitter in June, and I saw, check this out.
Right.
It was the Women's March that had tweeted it. And so I immediately signed up. And I went because I wanted to see with my own eyes. My Congress people are Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell. Enough said.
I'd say you don't have to go any further.
You know, nothing's going to happen.
Right.
It's going to be person to person changing. Neighbors talking to neighbors. As I wanted to be a witness and come back and share everything and then get people's rear ends to the voting poll.
Were you surprised how many people joined and that they came from all over the United States, or was not surprising to you?
It was very surprising.
Because it's one thing to say I grieve. It's another thing to say what's happening is terrible, which a grand majority did. It's another thing to take your time, your effort, your energy to get in a car and follow other cars with a bunch of strangers and do something about it. Were you surprised how many people actually did it?
No, not really.
No.
Because I think most of us are humane.
Uh-huh.
And I think that with a visceral response, seeing those children in cages. And we just didn't know what to do. And I was moved to tears when I saw everyone coming.
Rafiah, how did you decide to join this?
I had wanted to do something, but I was always leery of groups. What's their hidden agenda? What are they really up to? I just didn't know how to get involved, really. And it was my friend, who's one of the real forefront of the Grannies Respond, Rafiah, who called me and said, I don't know if you're going to want to do this. I don't know if you're interested, but I just want to share. This is what some grandmothers are getting together to do, and you're a grandmother, Rafiah, and maybe you'd want to do it. And that was, in a way, an answer to a prayer. I knew Rafiah. I'm a grandmother. It's very simple. The agenda is not complicated. Children should be with their families. My family supported me, and so I was able to do it.
Now, you started originally in Atlanta. And Sharon, where did you start? Did you start in Kentucky, or did you meet the group somewhere else?
They met me.
They met you
in Kentucky.
So they along their way. So what cities did you visit with them?
New Orleans, Montgomery, Houston, McAllen, and our little stop at Dilley.
What was the highlight for you of everything you saw or did?
It was all of it. And I've been in a lot of groups doing social justice stuff. I've never been in a group where we were so coalesced and focused. We nourished each other and nurtured each other. It was just the most awesome experience.
What did you think that you did in your trip, which was about 4, 5, 6 days you were in this caravan? What did you do, or what did you see that had the biggest political impact, and what did you see that had the biggest emotional impact to you?
The biggest political impact was when we were at the Dilley detention center, and I realized that every single detention center is privately owned, which means I, as a citizen, cannot go in. And that was a set by the current administration to make a lot of money.
Well, I will say this: it's been privately owned for decades. It was Obama.
I didn't know that.
Yes, it was Obama. It was Bush.
Really?
Yes, it's not just Trump. It's been privatized.
Well, you see what I learned.
Right, it's been privatized for decades. And so what does a private jail do? A private jail wants to make as much money as they can. So the conditions in immigration detention are worse than the conditions that you would see in a regular county jail. And you're better off actually, as someone who a criminal is in a better position who's in the county jail than an immigrant fleeing for their life in a for-profit immigration detention center.
And that's obscene.
Yes.
And immoral.
Correct. Now, Rafiah, you went to Dilley as well, correct?
Yes.
Why did you decide to take that detour to Dilley?
Well, I decided to do that. It was a group effort. Everything that the Grannies Respondent did was a democratic process, you could say. So everyone agreed that we all wanted to go together. This was an unplanned experience, but it certainly was part of our mission. So I was actually in the black van that pulled up initially, and the people came out, and sometimes it was referred to as a welcome party, but it was a confrontation.
Were they expecting you?
No, they were not expecting us. But I would hate to ring your doorbell and have you confront me that way in the middle of the morning. Not the middle of the morning, but daylight. And it was just very hostile.
What did they say to you? Give me a rundown. What did they say to you? The women got out. The grandmas get out of a van, right in front of the.
No, we did not.
You did not get out of the van.
We were not even able to get out. Sharon and I were very, very tempted to just ease out of the van while they were talking. But it was so clear that this was not friendly territory.
Did they come with guns?
Not in their holster, but their demeanor was pretty off-putting. And the woman came out with 2 pretty burly sized guys with her. They were silent, but they were clearly there. Cease and desist any activity that we may have had. Matter of fact, they said, this is your final warning. If you don't leave, we will call the authorities.
So when you got to McAllen, Texas, were you able to get near the Ursula?
Some people did. You needed a passport to get like up on the border, but we did go to a respite site sponsored by the Catholic Charities, and we sang some songs and were able to interact with some of the detainees there. There was a father and his daughter. He didn't speak English. I didn't speak Spanish, but he understood when I told him to stay close to that daughter of hers. And he just smiled and laughed and hugged his daughter. And it was so emotional. We just wanted to let them know that American citizens, that there are people who realize and acknowledge what they're going through.
Sharon, when you were going on your way along, what was the reaction from the local people as you were going along from Kentucky to Memphis to this is Trump country, yeah. Memphis, New Orleans, all the way down into Texas. These are not your more moderate liberal people living there. Were you welcomed? Were they like, Grannies, what are you doing?
On the road, we got honk, lots, because we had honk if you support humanity and stuff written on the buses. I was amazed. We got one middle finger and one notebook scrawled that we couldn't really read that said, keep people away, keep on the other side, or some stupidity. Oh no, that was in Mississippi. When we got into the towns, we were greeted warmly. I mean, I have never seen so many people come out in Houston and also in New Orleans. I mean, we were moved to tears. It was quite surprising.
Was there a lot of press coverage along the way?
The BBC did a really decent job, and the German press and the Latino press, they did great.
Well, it's good. So, at least the rest of the world could see that there's some decent people in America still.
I know.
So, at least that got to make you feel good. Rafiah.
I was in D.C.
Oh, okay.
So I flew to Atlanta, joined with another group called the Atlanta Grandmothers for Peace. And we drove to Montgomery.
And that's where you met Sharon?
Yes.
Where did you guys stay along the way? Was it planned, or you're like, wherever, we'll find a motel along the way? How did you pay for your gas? How did you pay for your food?
People were enormously generous. So the van and the gas and even the hotel stay were all from that GoFundMe fund. And there were some families, I think in New Orleans especially, who opened their homes to us. And then some of them joined the Caravan and went to McAllen with us as well.
You know if there's any money left over after all your expenses from the GoFundMe?
Yeah, there is. And they are giving it to organizations at the border.
Wonderful.
That are helping people.
Wonderful. So you guys are back now. It was some experience. Do you just go back to your everyday lives and, you did it? Or or are you still moving forward, if anything?
Those grannies are out of control.
Grannies are out of control.
They haven't stopped.
Yeah?
We weren't even home yet. And the ones that were home were already doing actions.
Wow.
They're being invited to speak in their local communities. They're writing op-eds. They're starting local groups. We have a border bear knitting project. We're getting ready to do the above-ground railroad, which will be some kind of mechanism for welcoming people at various bus stations. So I'm tired.
It was a chance to really see what's needed and how to plug in our communities when we get back home.
We had a doctor on our show, and she was talking about the stress that these children go through, that it's going to live with them for the rest of their lives. They're going to need a lot of help. It's not just reunite them with a mother or a father, and we did our job. Trump caused, Sessions caused, Rand Paul and McConnell caused a lot of damage to these children that they may never come back from. Do you feel you accomplished anything in changing anyone's minds, in changing the way we talk and policy, or is that going to still be an ongoing battle?
Definitely an ongoing battle. Yeah. Definitely. I think that's one of the charges that I feel that I have, is to make sure that what's going on with families and children is a personal experience. And so just like I have shared all along that our history with American slavery and incarceration and the persistent history we have of separating families and weakening individuals, this, I think, is the place where I can help Americans realize this is nothing new and we have got to take action and become more like Sharon Granny.
Do you have any?
I did get into a confrontation
in
a hotel in Arkansas.
With who?
Some guy who was eating breakfast who inserted himself in my conversation and said he needed to go down to the border and protest what was happening. And I just told him, well, that's your right, but butt out.
Right. You don't mess with the grannies, right?
No.
I think we did inspire.
You did.
People joined us along the way who hadn't planned to.
Then you
who
did.
Came and heard us.
Then you did. Then that's the answer.
Yes.
Do you guys know your own immigration stories? Families' immigration stories?
I do. I'm Scottish. Long lifer Presbyterian.
Uh-huh.
They were thrown out of Scotland because they wouldn't follow the Church of England. They immigrated to Ireland. They came to America in the 1700s and started one of the first Presbyterian churches. They fled oppression.
And
you don't want to mess with the Scotsman either.
And I guess it sounds like you have a long history in your family of going against the ruling party is at the moment.
Yeah, we were abolitionists during the Civil War.
Uh-huh.
And I have a good oral family history and also DNA stuff.
You know, Brad, one of the terms that was used when we were on the border, and it was victim. And one of the most outspoken and active persons helping, she says these people are not victims. They are survivors, etc. They're strong. And so in my community, a lot of times people feel still victimized, you know, that America has done these horrible things to our ancestors, which is true. But we have to empower ourselves because we're part of those who survived. So when you ask about our immigration history, of course, by looking at me, you have some idea what my story should be. But personally, I do remember going to visit my father's parents, and we had to walk way, way back into a field and up a long flight of stairs. And that was the only time I remember visiting them. And as I got older, I understood that that was a plantation and that my grandparents still lived there. And that's where my father was born. But if I could do a Penn State story, that would be another American story that I could share.
What's your American dream, Sharon?
My American dream is that everyone will enjoy the opportunity to have the best life possible and feel like they're part of who we are.
And Rafiah?
My dream is that we get close to one another and we appreciate and celebrate how we're all so different, but we're all here at the same time, in the same place, what we can do together.
Are the Grannies going to get back together again? Is there going to be another Caravan in a year from now?
I'm sure the Grannies will get together. How it's going to look is yet to be determined.
Right. How does somebody who wants to be interested in your group, in the Granny Caravan, Grannies Unite, how do they reach you? How do they reach this group? How do they become involved?
www.granniesrespond.org.
Granniesrespond.org or granniesrespond@gmail.com. And there's a Facebook page as well?
Just look for Grannies Respond.
Wonderful. You guys were wonderful. Thank you again for giving updates on your trip. Everyone on our show and all the viewers loved it. They loved you. They loved everything you were doing. As I said in the beginning, it's one thing to say what's going on is terrible. It's another thing to stand up and use your energy and actually go do something about it. You're amazing women, and congratulations to both of you on what was a successful caravan down to the border. You really raised awareness, certainly. Hopefully you changed some minds as well, and hopefully you continue.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
It was awesome.
Thank you. Be well.